That was so powerful, Jeff. I want to clip that and have it as my ringtone or something. That was, I'm really glad you shared that, Steve. That pinnacle that Jeff is talking about of people underlying that system. Just think about all those students that came into office hours and stayed overtime over our summer. I'm almost positive they weren't the top finishing grades in our course, right?
Yeah.
Because we had some. I mean, you saw those final projects. Some of those people coded the circuit board to play Mozart. So that's not right. But as far as if we define learning as change, we saw what those students were exerting, right, every single day after class, multiple hours, right? So
Well, and then also how you were mentioning, just kind of how people in positions of power, especially like in academia, you can kind of be an asshole and have this like superiority complex. And it's pretty interesting because when I was reading the book, it was recommending, or not recommending, but saying like maybe some students should go out into the work world before getting their PhD because they kind of, well, assuming like they're like 22 and whatnot, they're young, but they still like, because it's really common for people entering the PhD to kind of have like their inferior and then their 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 mentor, the people like, or their professors are like the superior, and they kind of are scared to break that like relation or that like kind of ideology. And when you go to work, you kind of realize a little bit more of your value, and you realize like, hey, I'm paying for this, or I'm investing my time, and I want to make this education worth it. So you're more likely to advocate for yourself. And I just thought, I was like, I feel like I'm already at that step because I've already had Jeff whispering that in my ear for the last 2, 3, like, advocate for yourself. You're worth it. Like, you deserve this. Fuck that professor. Like, do what you have to do to get like to help yourself. Um, you're paying them. Like, I always have that in the back of my mind. So I feel like what you're doing, it's working, because like I feel like that's an example of me already like learning and not having to go through that step. Like, I think I've already kind of developed that mindset, or like I'm working on it. But yeah.
it takes active work to not become a jerk in these systems because the scoreboard's messed up, right? Even in Newport's podcast, he literally says, because the scoreboard's so messed up, we're conditioning people to become jerks or self-centered, right? I mean, just think about how competitive it is, right? And that extends beyond academia for sure. But um,
And advocating for yourself, and like all while like staying polite, like not just outright going to a professor like, hey, I'm paying your bills, like you better give me this, but like, just be courteous, but still knowing your worth.
Yeah, I mean, I don't fault. One thing that's amazing is the compassion that comes out of this. Like, when I look at high powered professors, I don't fault them for their lack of interest in student success and their lack of empathy for students. They're doing the most rational thing. And there's, if there's a lot, I mean, that's a systemic problem, right? Like, if you tell people, if you celebrate people for particular behavior and then they fall into that behavior, we shouldn't get mad at that person for falling into that trap, right? Where you should, yeah.
Jeff, you saw those messages I wrote to the executive director of MESA and the president and the dean? They said the same thing, that all of them, basically their response was that it's just too bad that society, like, deepest, sincerest sympathies for professors and people in education, because that's not what we're valuing as a society, which is sad, right? And then I had asked the question, as a first year registered voter, where can I get more educated to get more funding into education? But they didn't get to my question, so I'll keep that question for myself. They got the power.
That's so cool.